Welcome, and why we're talking about peaceful spaces. 3 months ago, I was standing in my living room, surrounded by 47 years of accumulated belongings, feeling completely overwhelmed. After moving from our 4-bedroom family home to a cozy 2-bedroom apartment, I found myself drowning in stuff I couldn't bear to part with, but had no room to properly display. Every surface was cluttered. Every closet was packed. Instead of feeling peaceful in my new space, I felt anxious every time I walked through the door. That's when my neighbor, Mrs. Tanaka, knocked on my door with a cup of tea and a gentle suggestion that would completely transform not just my home, but my entire relationship with the space around me. Mrs. Tanaka, who had moved to our building 6 months earlier, had the most serene apartment I'd ever seen. When she invited me in for tea that afternoon, I was struck by how spacious her 1-bedroom unit felt. Even though it was smaller than mine, everything had its place. Every item seemed to belong exactly where it was. There was this sense of calm that seemed to emanate from the very walls. I asked her how she had managed to create such a peaceful environment in such a small space. She smiled and said, "Would you like to learn about the Japanese way of living with less but feeling more?" That conversation introduced me to concepts I'd never heard of before, ideas that have been practiced in Japan for centuries, but felt completely revolutionary to someone like me, who had spent decades collecting and keeping just in case. Mrs. Tanaka explained that in Japanese culture, there's a deep understanding that our external environment directly affects our internal state of mind. The way we arrange our living spaces isn't just about aesthetics. It's about creating harmony between ourselves and our surroundings. She told me about something called ma, which refers to the purposeful use of empty space. In Western culture, we often feel compelled to fill every corner, every surface, every wall. But the Japanese understand that empty space isn't wasted space. It's breathing room for the soul. When I looked around my cluttered apartment with this new perspective, I realized I had been suffocating my own spirit with too much stuff crammed into too small a space. The beautiful thing about the Japanese approach to living spaces is that it isn't about having a large home or expensive furniture. It's about understanding that peace comes not from having more, but from having just enough of the right things arranged with intention and care. Mrs. Tanaka showed me how she had applied these principles to her own apartment. I was amazed by how much thought had gone into every single item she had chosen to keep. In her living room, she had one beautiful ceramic vase that her grandmother had given her. It was positioned on a simple wooden table near the window, where the morning light could illuminate it. That was it. No clusters of decorative objects, no collection of knickknacks, just that one meaningful piece that brought her joy every time she looked at it. She explained that this is the essence of what the Japanese call mono, air, the bittersweet awareness of the impermanence of all things, which makes us treasure what we have even more deeply. I thought about my own coffee table, which was covered with magazines I had been meaning to read, remote controls, coasters, a small plant that was dying from lack of attention, and various other items that had simply accumulated over time. None of these things were particularly meaningful to me, but together they created a sense of chaos that I had been living with for so long that I had stopped noticing how it affected my mood. Mrs. Tanaka's peaceful home, and the Japanese way. Mrs. Tanaka also introduced me to the concept of ikigai, the idea that every item in your home should serve a purpose, whether functional or spiritual. She asked me to walk through my apartment and consider each object. Does this item bring me joy? Does it serve a practical purpose? Does it have special meaning that connects me to happy memories or loved ones? If the answer to all 3 questions was no, she gently suggested, perhaps it was time to let that item go. This wasn't about being ruthless or forcing myself to live in a stark, empty space. It was about being intentional and mindful about what I chose to surround myself with. As someone who had spent decades accumulating things for my family, keeping the good china for special occasions, saving clothes that might fit again someday, holding on to books I'd probably never reread, this way of thinking felt both challenging and liberating. I realized that many of the items I was clinging to weren't actually bringing me joy or serving any real purpose. They were just taking up space and creating visual noise that made it harder for me to relax in my own home. The Japanese understand that our living spaces should be sanctuaries, places where we can rest and recharge, not museums of our past or storage units for our anxieties about the future. With Mrs. Tanaka's gentle guidance, I began to transform my apartment one small area at a time. We started with my kitchen counter, which had become a catch-all for mail, keys, shopping lists, and various items that didn't have a designated home. She showed me how to create what the Japanese call clear pathways. Not just physical pathways for walking, but visual pathways that allow the eye to rest and the mind to feel calm. I cleared everything off the counter except for 3 items. My coffee maker, which I use every morning, a small wooden bowl for my daily vitamins, and a single potted herb plant that brings me joy when I water it and use its leaves for cooking. The difference was immediate and profound. Instead of feeling stressed every time I walked into the kitchen, I felt a sense of peace and order that made even simple tasks like making breakfast feel more enjoyable. The power of and mindful space. The Japanese have a beautiful practice called reset rituals, small daily actions that restore harmony to your living space. Mrs. Tanaka taught me to spend just 5 minutes each evening returning items to their designated places, wiping down surfaces, and preparing my space for the next day. This isn't about perfect housekeeping or impressing anyone. It's about creating a sense of completion and care that helps you sleep better and wake up feeling more peaceful. I've discovered that these reset rituals have become one of my favorite parts of the day. After dinner, I'll put away the dishes, fold the kitchen towel just so, and place my reading glasses in their small ceramic dish by my favorite chair. These simple actions have become a form of meditation, a way of showing gratitude for my home and preparing myself for rest. One of the most transformative concepts Mrs. Tanaka shared with me was the idea of seasonal living. Instead of keeping all my belongings out all the time, she suggested I rotate items based on the seasons, much like Japanese families have done for generations. In spring, I might display a small vase with fresh flowers from my weekly grocery store visit. In autumn, I'll put away the light summer throw pillows and bring out a cozy blanket that reminds me of cooler evenings. This seasonal approach has made my small apartment feel like it's constantly evolving and refreshing itself. Instead of looking at the same decorative objects month after month until they become invisible, I'm rediscovering items I love as I rotate them back into my living space. It's like having a new home several times a year without spending any money or acquiring new things. We also worked on what she called mindful storage. Instead of stuffing things into closets and drawers where they'd be forgotten, we organized everything so that I could easily find what I needed. She showed me how to fold clothes in a way that allows me to see everything at once, and how to store dishes so that even my everyday plates feel special when I take them out to use. The Japanese believe that the way we care for our belongings reflects how we care for ourselves. When I open my linen closet now and see my towels folded neatly, all facing the same direction, I feel a sense of accomplishment and self-respect. It's a small thing, but it reminds me that I'm worth the effort it takes to create order and beauty in my daily life. Perhaps the most important lesson I learned was about the concept of enough. In Japanese culture, there's great wisdom in knowing when you have sufficient belongings to live comfortably and happily. This doesn't mean living in deprivation, but rather understanding that constantly acquiring more things doesn't lead to greater contentment. If anything, it can create the opposite effect, a sense of being overwhelmed and unable to properly appreciate what we already have. I think this lesson is particularly relevant for those of us who are in our later years. We've spent decades accumulating things for our families, our careers, our hobbies, but now, in this quieter phase of life, we have the opportunity to surround ourselves only with items that truly bring us joy or serve a meaningful purpose. We can choose quality over quantity, meaning over accumulation. 3 months later, my apartment feels like a completely different place. It's not that I've spent money on new furniture or undergone a major renovation. Instead, I've learned to see my space through Japanese eyes as a place where every item has been chosen with care, where empty space is valued as much as filled space, and where the goal is harmony rather than abundance. Friends who visit often comment on how peaceful my apartment feels, and I realize that this sense of calm isn't just about the physical changes I've made. It's about the shift in my relationship with my belongings and my space. I no longer feel guilty about the things I've let go of, and I no longer feel anxious about keeping my space perfect. Instead, I feel grateful for the items I've chosen to keep, and I take pleasure in caring for them properly. The Japanese approach has also changed how I approach new purchases. Before buying anything, I ask myself the questions Mrs. Tanaka taught me. Will this item serve a purpose in my life? Will it bring me genuine joy? Do I have a proper place for it? This mindful approach to consumption has not only kept my space peaceful, but has also saved me money and prevented the accumulation of items I don't really need. I've also discovered that this way of living has affected other areas of my life. The sense of calm I feel in my well-organized space has made me more patient, more present, and more appreciative of simple pleasures. When I sit in my living room with my morning coffee, looking at the one beautiful painting I've chosen to display on the wall, I feel a deep sense of contentment that I rarely experienced when I was surrounded by more things. Mrs. Tanaka often reminds me that this isn't about following rules or achieving some perfect aesthetic. It's about creating a space that supports your well-being and reflects your values. For some people, that might mean having more books on display. For others, it might mean having family photos in every room. The key is intentionality, making conscious choices about what you surround yourself with rather than letting things accumulate by default. If this approach to creating a peaceful space resonates with you, I'd love to hear about one small change you might make in your own home. Maybe it's clearing off a single surface or choosing one meaningful item to display while putting others away. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Sometimes, the smallest steps can lead to the most significant transformations. Please consider subscribing to our channel for more gentle approaches to making this stage of life more comfortable and fulfilling. We're all learning how to create homes that support our well-being, and sharing these discoveries makes the journey richer for everyone. Remember, your home should be a sanctuary that nurtures your spirit, not a burden that weighs you down. You deserve to live in a space that brings you peace, no matter how small or large it might be.